RPG a Day 2017, day 7. Okay, let's see what's today's question. What was your most impactful RPG session? Well, when it comes to RPG sessions being impactful, there's some examples I could maybe dig up if I try hard enough and maybe try and, find ways to, make them impactful in a sense, because a lot of the stuff that I've learned when it comes to this hobby, a lot of stuff that I've kind of grabbed from different sessions and playing in different groups and under different GMs and in different circumstances, playing something completely different that I'm used to from before, or anything of that sort. Playing online, where you feel a certain pressure to kind of perform to a viewing audience and all that stuff. There's all sorts of things I could pull like that where there's been some sort of an impact, but it's very hard to pinpoint any specific session or even a specific campaign where a dramatic shift has kind of occurred in that way. So I was thinking about this from another angle, where the most impactful session, like what session has left a mark on me and influenced, or rather, well, influenced growth in me on a personal level and on the level of the hobby itself. And I know this challenge is all about promoting positivity about the hobby and all that, focusing on the positive stuff. And I view this as a positive thing because the outcome is extremely positive. And it's about one's comfort zones. It's just like I talked about in the first video when I was talking about one's religious kind of boundaries when it comes to games like Inquisitor Dark Ages, where you'll play characters who hear the literal words of the Judeo-Christian God, and who vow solemn vows in his name, and still like wind up torturing people or going on a crusade and stuff. So there's a lot of things that can tick people off and really like rub them the wrong way, and really like show them where their boundaries are, where their comfort zones are. And for everybody it's a different thing, because we're all individuals. Everybody has a different brain, so different boundaries are different for depending on the person. And for me, I came across my own boundaries when I experimented with Wraith the Oblivion. I've played the game only once in my life for 3 sessions. I think if I remember correctly, it was 3 sessions before I wound up having to quit for my own well-being, for my own mental well-being, having to do with these personal borders and boundaries. I'm not going to go into personal detail about my personal life or my kind of mindscape or anything like that, because that's pretty much what made me delete a lot of my old videos, because I went too much into detail about personal stuff. So I'll just say this. When it comes to Wraith the Oblivion, the setting itself is already set up very much as this very depressing and uh, very grim and very tragic and very, yeah, very depressing setting, where it's not only that you're playing people who are dead and who are stranded in the kind of world of wandering aimlessly wandering dead and all that, because they have all sorts of unfinished business. They were taken from this world at a time where they had lots of unfinished business and baggage and all sorts of stuff like that, usually having to do with something rather traumatic and tragic and that sort of stuff. The thing that goes beside that really like had an impact on me was the fact that each character in that game has what's called a shadow, and the shadow is basically a manifestation of all of your characters' negative uh, aspects, about their subconscious, about their self-image, about their ego. It's basically the literal monkey on your back kind of thing that like complete like feeds off of trying to get you to stray from the from your path, kind of get you to do things that are against your own well-being or against your best interest. They try to beat you down emotionally, and they try to crush you and break you. That's what they do. That's what they feed on. That's what they are there for. That's what they represent and are like a manifestation of yourself, made like into this antagonist. Like if you look at movies or cartoons or something, like the stuff that started from the original Faust play, the thing where an angel and a demon appear on your shoulders, that kind of thing. And in Wraith, it's like only the demon, appears and tries to get you to do stuff that's against your own best interest and your own well-being and stuff. And the way they usually do it is by taunting you, by berating you, by belittling you, by making you second guess yourself, by making you, go into a spiral of self-loathing and all sorts of negative stuff like that. Make you basically curl up in a fetal position and be apathetic, self-hating. You know that kind of a thing, that kind of anguish and torment and torture that a person who's become a wraith winds up going through if they kind of succumb to the whims of their own shadow. And the thing is that in the game mechanic, the shadow is not role played like an NPC by the game master. The shadow is role played by your fellow players. From every player, like the person to their right, or something like that, role plays their shadow. And when you have a game like Wraith, where I've kind of come to this conclusion, where when you have something like an action adventure game, like a fantasy RPG, like a D&D or something, people like when they go into combat, they're looking for payoffs. They're looking for the sort of oh, that was awesome kind of payoffs. They're looking for the cool descriptions when they swing their sword or use their epic wizardry and stuff like that. When they see exotic, dangerous looking, grotesque monsters, and they find glamorous treasures, and they go into overblown, magical elven kingdoms and stuff. That's the kind of payoff you're looking for, not just experience points, but the kind of actual experience you're looking for in the actual story and the story of the characters. In a game that goes more into the realm of horror, and especially the ones that go into this kind of depressing horror, if you've watched like Lars von Trier films or Michael Haneke films or something like that, they're the sort of things where the horror is almost secondary to the depressing nature of it, the kind of soul-crushing nature of it all. And when you're looking for payoffs in a world like that, where it's not about action and adventure and stuff, but about that sort of horror and anguish, the sort of stuff that you kind of tend to dive into, and the stuff that gets your rocks off kind of thing, creatively and, in terms of your imagination and visualizing everything and all that, is usually when things get fucked up. Not in the sense of failing at something you're attempting, but when fucked up things happen, when messed up things happen, when freaky, grotesque, taboo things happen, when you see things like, maybe you see, horrible violence towards children, for example, or something like that, where the aim is to shock and gross out and mess with somebody's, like the players, like expectations and emotions and that sort of thing. Like when you watch movies like that or read stories like that, where it's like, you know, it's like it makes your skin crawl. But that's entertainment. You know, people watch horror movies because they like to get scared, they like to spook themselves, they like to watch stuff that makes you cry. You know, I like to watch movies that make me cry because, you know, that's, you're exploring stuff about yourself, you know. So it's not like, it's like messed up to be into that sort of thing, you know. It's its own thing. It's different kind of entertainment. It's all entertainment. It's all storytelling. It's all about expressing stuff. It's all about imagining stuff. It's all about exploring stuff about your own thoughts and your own creativity, and that's a really good thing to do. So that's, on face value, something like Wraith the Oblivion is not a bad thing. But when it comes to, you know, personal boundaries, with that game, I came quite a bit like face to face with my kind of boundaries, and that was when you feel like you're you're surrounded by people, even though they're taking on a role, even though they're taking on a role, portraying like characters in a role playing game. When you find that you're like, people around you are trying to upset you, kind of thing, like, and not upset you in this kind of way where they want to just kind of you know, make you miserable or anything like that. It's just that we've all agreed to, you know, where this is the sort of entertainment we're going to be going for here, you know. But when I find myself in that kind of situation where like there's the harrowing happening, where the GM and the player who's playing the ghost are like you know, together creating these horrible nightmare scenarios, trying to break the player's character, and there's all sorts of stuff happening that, you know, is meant to pull on your heartstrings and make your, you know, lip quiver, kind of thing. And I'm enough of an emotional guy where, like I said, I like to watch movies that make me cry. That was where I found my boundaries. Really, it was like where where the kicks of the game is the kind of misery of it, and it's not the sort of misery that I was describing when I was describing Dark Ages Inquisitor. It's the sort of thing where, well, I feel like I'm kind of going in circles. I feel like if for the further I describe it, the more I'm kind of going back and describing the same thing I already described, just with kind of new words. But I think you kind of get my drift with that. I don't want to go into the reasons why it disturbed me as much as it did compared to maybe other people around the table, but it did, and that was the most impactful session, or a bunch of sessions, a campaign, 3 sessions, you know, that had the most impact on me as a role player, because that was, I originally approached the challenge of playing Wraith as just that, as a challenge. Do I have it in me to play legitimate horror, to emote and role play characters believably enough where I could pull off these scenes that the game master is trying to build around me, about stuff that's emotional and serious enough where you really need to feel it and you really need to be convincing. Otherwise, it'll just fall on its ass, kind of thing. You know, just like if you're acting in theater and all of a sudden you have to do like it'll go from romantic comedies all of a sudden to something like you know, a gut wrenching, you know, drama, tragedy stuff. You know, that really demands that nobody in the audience is going to be smirking or anything like that. They have to take it seriously all throughout, and they need to buy it, you know, and you need to be able to sell it, you know, that kind of thing. That was the challenge I was going for with Wraith, but found myself facing a whole different challenge having to do with, you know, this, you know, and the stuff that the game deals with. So yeah, that was the most impactful session for me as a role player. So yeah, there you go. Day 7 of RPG A Day 2017. See you tomorrow for day 8.